And that's why when I came back from Vietnam, all the peaceniks, the hippies, the love generation, they spit on me when I got back, hit me with eggs. And that's what happens when we didn't stop them, push them all the way back to Moscow, where Marxism, where Stalin and those guys created communism. And so today we face it today. So it's a very sad time, but it's also why the Rich Dad Company was founded. I'm glad you've been endorsed, the BI triangle on leadership, because that's from military. For those that haven't read, it's the second book in the Rich Dad series. It's called the Cash Flow Quadrant, ESBI. E stands for employee, S stands for self-employed or small business, B stands for big business or brand, and I stands for investor. The BI triangle is what's the difference between the people on the B and the I. So Ryan, what did you take away from that B and the I triangle? Because that's military school. And Ryan, it's something about Hollywood war movies and real war movies. And I just remember the first time being a pilot, the war is very abstract. We kill from the sky. But I remember this one time, this Marine, it was this Army helicopter landed aboard our carrier, because our carrier had a full operating hospital on board. And this Army gunner, probably a sergeant or a private, he took a 50 cal through the door handle in through his gut and tore him in half. And it was the first time I'd seen an American casualty. And you see this young kid, very handsome young guy, he has no guts, just blown to pieces. And we had to go in there and scrape him out. We got him down to the operating room. And then about 2 to 3 weeks later, the guy was wheeled off. He was still alive. And that's what the average person doesn't see. They sit in their television sets, the rooms, the college classrooms, and they criticize people like you and me who have actually seen it. Or I love what Nicholson said all this Hollywood. He says, you want the truth, you can't handle it. I think that's really what's wrong with America today, because we'd rather just pretend that if you play Reddit and Robin Hood and all that stuff, your life will be fine. Meanwhile, we're getting our asses kicked everywhere. And that's, to me, it's one thing to die, but the other thing is, Kim has seen my classmates who never came back. Like Robbie, I went to elementary school. He was an A6 pilot for the Marine Corps. They don't come back. But the guys, a lot of them do come back, either severely physically wounded or emotionally wounded. And I think that's a real tragedy. And now I'm really concerned about the Afghanis who actually did support us. They're going to get killed now. And, my company, when I was in Hawaii, remember, Kim, we had all those Vietnamese boat people working for us. So the mission goes on as entrepreneurs. But I had about 35 Vietnamese people working for us, and they were the best of people. They worked so hard. They didn't complain. They didn't ask for time off. They were just happy to be in Hawaii working. And I think that's what's missing. We've gotten really too soft. For me, it's a very sad time, because we lost a lot, and we're going to continue to lose now. And I got a little upset about it, because this is like deja vu all over again. I remember when we had to evacuate. I didn't evacuate, but we knew we lost the war. As I got in trouble saying to my commanding officer, I said, how come their Vietnamese fight harder than our Vietnamese? Like I said, when the NVA, North Vietnamese Army, rolled south, so did the South Vietnamese Army. they were running ahead of the NVA. And that's why we have a chance to take a look at the Taliban's pictures right now. You can see it in their eyes. They want to win. And as Ryan said, all the Taliban, all the Afghani army was an employment agency. So with that said, I want to wrap this up, but the mission goes on. When I came back from Vietnam and we lost, there was a thing called the Vietnamese boat people, and they escaped any way they could. And Kim remembers the mission went on as entrepreneurs. Like my little company, we had about 35 Vietnamese boat people working for it. So our job was to keep the fight on via entrepreneurship. Like the 3 owners of the Rich Dad Company, one was Army, my brother was Air Force, and I was Marines. And it was one of the most important jobs we have, was to provide jobs for them. So anyway, that's the thing I'd like to say, is that it really disturbs me that when America's gotten very weak in the guts. They have no guts. They're almost as bad as the ghost armies of the Iraqi army. But with that said, anyway, thank you for listening to Rich Dad. The way we fight back is the Capitalist Manifesto, which contrary to the Communist Manifesto, is Kim and I started the Rich Dad Company with the cash flow board game. The way, when my new book comes out called The Capitalist Manifesto, not Communist Manifesto, is what Kim and I did back in the 80s, was we created the board games, because the way you fight communism which most school teachers, I would say 20% of school teachers today are Marxists, but don't know it because they never read the Communist Manifesto, much less anything else. So 20% of all school teachers today are Marxists. There's a new book called The Madness of Crowds. It talks about when a survey done, 20% of the school teachers do not realize, but they have Marxist beliefs. So the way Kim and I fought back in, what's that, 96 now, seems like years ago, we created the cash flow board game to teach capitalism. We wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad to fight capitalism, fight for capitalism. We wrote Cash Flow Quadrant, which Ryan talks about the BI triangle. That's military leadership, mission, leader, team. And that's how the Rich Dad Company operates today. We're a small entrepreneurial company, but we're fighting against Marxism taught in our schools, because that's why there's no financial education in schools. And every time I tell a school teacher they think like Marx, they get very upset. I said, well, did you read the Communist Manifesto? They go, no, but I have a college degree. I said, that's the problem. And we have thousands of cash flow clubs which teach capitalism throughout the world. They're small little clubs. Hopefully they'll stay submerged so they don't get shut down by the woke crowd and the cancel culture and the school teachers of the area. Because as Kim knows, it was the teachers that have attacked us the hardest.
They have. And yes, our cash flow clubs, we've got over 2,000 that have registered at the Rich Dad website, and it's great. We're going to be supporting them more and more with education and resources and all sorts of things, because that's how we spread our mission, is through the cash flow clubs.
And I didn't prompt Ryan on this, but the reason the BI triangle is so important is when you look at ES, B, and the I, the B and the I side is where we still have our freedoms. Mm-hmm. E's and S's have lost their freedoms. So like today, you get fired if you don't get a shot, a vaccine shot, which doesn't work, but you'll still get fired. So we're losing our freedoms on the E and the S side. If you want freedoms, it's on the B and the I side. So that's why we have cash flow clubs. So people have no idea what I'm talking about. Read the book number 2 in the Capitalist Manifesto is called the Cash Flow Quadrant. Like I said, that first guy I saw face to face with his guts blown out, I'd seen Viet Cong dead, but I never saw my first American soldier, young guy, blown to shreds. I mean, thank God he lived. And then we got spit on by those hippies, those flower children, peaceniks. That was communism invading America. That's why I hold it, and I catch hell for that. What happened for me in Vietnam is we'd be firing, we'd catch the Viet Cong or NVA, North Vietnamese Army, out in the open, and before we could shoot, I had to go up and say, desk control, desk. I don't know who they were, but they were back in Washington, D.C. I said, fire mission, and they say, wait one. And meanwhile, we're taking fire like crazy. We have to wait for permission to shoot. And those are the guys who are making the decisions. And until you've been there, I don't think you have any idea what that feels like. American troops are getting killed. They're kicking the crap out of us. They're firing back at us. I have to radio to Washington and say, fire mission, wait one. And that's why, Kim knows my friend, General Bergman, 3-star. He calls them bunker bunnies. Bunker bunnies. And President Biden won the election hiding in his basement. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't tell you something, and why I call Biden a pussy, you haven't been to either Afghanistan or to Vietnam, and you're probably a college graduate who's never been into the real world.
Small ebook, big impact, the wealth tree. The only 4 ways that will make you financially free forever. Download it here for free.